Windsor Castle has hosted one of the oldest and most spectacular traditions in the British royal.
King Charles and Queen Camilla led the annual Order of the Garter procession.
Garter ceremony, which dates back more than 600 years to the reign of King Edward III.
And St George's Chapel has become incredibly meaningful for the royal family.
The annual procession is one of the most traditional events in the royal calendar.
Visitors were treated to a remarkable display of royal pageantry.
The most noble order of the Garter walk in procession at Windsor Castle with the Knights Companions of the order.
Pageant of monarchy and one of the oldest surviving traditions in British public life.
She looks absolutely fabulous. Both of the ladies do, of course, but the princess there with her butter yellow or...
The historic chapel had served as the spiritual home of the Order of the Garter for centuries.
The Princess of Wales and Duchess of Edinburgh watched on from outside St George's Chapel.
But beneath the pageantry is a nearly 700-year-old story about loyalty.
King Charles and Queen Camilla once again became the centre of attention.
King was in such good spirits when he walked in as well. Queen Camilla looked stunning.
What the princess is trying to champion is bringing back that high-quality British design and that British manufacture.
She outranks almost everyone standing in that procession. The crown will sit on her head one day, not theirs. And still, twice in a single afternoon, she lowers herself. Not once. Twice. This is Windsor Castle, June 15th, 2026. Garter Day. The oldest ceremony in the royal calendar, playing out almost exactly as it has for nearly 700 years. Somewhere in that procession, Catherine, Princess of Wales, a future Queen of England, does something most people in her position might quietly skip. She curtsies, first to the king, then later, when the crowd's attention has already drifted elsewhere, she does it again. If you want more deep dives like this, make sure to subscribe to Royal Archives. What happened on those chapel steps wasn't about checking a box. It was about who Catherine actually is the moment nobody's still watching. To understand why this moment matters, you need to understand what Garter Day actually is. The Order of the Garter is the oldest and most senior order of chivalry in Britain, founded by King Edward III nearly 700 years ago in 1348. According to legend, it began with a dropped garter at a royal ball and a mocking court. Edward silenced with a single line that became the order's motto. That motto is still stitched in gold on the velvet robes worn at every Garter Day since. Membership is tightly controlled. The king serves as sovereign of the Garter. The Queen and the Prince of Wales hold places within it. Beyond them, only 24 companions are admitted, chosen personally by the monarch, usually in recognition of long public service. Catherine is not one of them. She has no formal place inside the order, which means every June she stands outside it, watching the knights process past in their dark blue robes and white-plumed hats, the same way she has for nearly 2 decades. The ceremony itself runs across 2 days, though Monday's procession is the part the public actually sees. Membership has occasionally extended beyond the British royal family entirely over the centuries, a reminder that the order was always meant to function as something bigger than one country's internal hierarchy. That detail matters more than it sounds like it should, because this wasn't Catherine's first Garter Day on the outside looking in. As coverage of the royal family's history has noted, her very first appearance at the ceremony came back in 2008, not as a royal, not even as a fiancée, but as William's girlfriend, watching from the sidelines while he received his own knighthood into the order. It was, by most accounts, an early signal that she was being quietly folded into the family. 2 years before the engagement. 18 years before this particular curtsy. By 2026, the watching position hadn't changed. Neither had the respect. Catherine arrived at Windsor that Monday in a butter yellow coat dress, custom made for her by British designer Patrick McDowell. The fabric wasn't off the rack. According to coverage from Tatler and Marie Claire, it had been woven specifically for her by Stephen Walters and Sons, a Suffolk silk mill she'd visited the previous September while highlighting Britain's textile industry, meaning the dress she wore to bow before the king had, in a sense, started with her own choice to support a struggling national craft. She paired it with a wide-brimmed hat by milliner Jane Taylor, trimmed to match the dress exactly, and a pair of diamond earrings by Robinson Pelham that carried their own quiet history. They were the same earrings she wore on her wedding day in 2011, a gift from her parents designed with tiny acorns that nod to her father's family crest. Then came the procession. The knights and ladies of the Garter walked down from Windsor's state apartments to St. George's Chapel in their velvet robes and gold chains, just as they have every June for centuries. Catherine and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, took their position at the chapel's Galilee porch, the traditional spot reserved for royal women outside the order itself. Sophie wore her own statement piece that day, a floral dress by Suzannah London known as the Gabriella, crafted in printed Italian silk. As William walked past earlier in the procession in his own plumed bonnet and velvet mantle, Catherine simply smiled, the kind of unguarded look reserved for a husband rather than a future monarch. Sophie, watching her own husband Prince Edward pass by, did the same. And when King Charles and Queen Camilla walked past them, both women dipped at the exact same moment. Hello magazine described it as the perfect double curtsy, not staggered, not rushed, timed so closely that footage from the day shows almost no gap between the two movements at all. Here's where it's worth pausing on what a curtsy actually represents, because it's easy to misread. Catherine isn't lowering herself to King Charles as a person. She's acknowledging something older and bigger than either of them, an institution that has outlasted every monarch who's ever worn the crown, including the one she'll eventually wear herself. The curtsy isn't really about rank in the room. It's about which one of them currently holds the title, and for how much longer that arrangement will last. And that's the part her history with this exact ceremony makes harder to dismiss as performance. She wasn't curtsying for the cameras in 2008, watching William receive his knighthood as an outsider with no formal standing in the family at all. There was nothing to perform for that day, no audience expecting it from her. And yet, by every account of that early appearance, she treated the order with the same quiet seriousness she brings to it now. 18 years, 1 engagement, 1 wedding, and 3 children later. That consistency is the actual story here. Plenty of public figures can perform respect when they know they're being watched. Fewer keep doing it identically once the watching stops being guaranteed. Catherine has spent nearly 2 decades treating this particular institution the same way whether the cameras are rolling or not. First as William's girlfriend with no rank at all, now as the Princess of Wales, who one day becomes the very thing she's currently bowing to. This wasn't a one-off appearance either. She's attended Garter Day year after year, regardless of what else was happening in her life, in a white Catherine Walker coat dress in 2019, in a pleated self-portrait dress in 2025, and in this Patrick McDowell piece in 2026. Different years, different outfits, the same gesture of respect repeated every single time without exception. The service inside St. George's Chapel ran close to an hour. New companions were formally installed. Prayers were said. The ceremony followed the same script it's followed for generations. Then, as tradition dictates, the king and queen left first. Charles and Camilla climbed into the same horse-drawn carriage that's carried monarchs away from Garter Day for longer than anyone alive can remember. The horses moved. The crowd cheered. Every camera in the vicinity swung toward the carriage rolling away from the chapel. Every camera except the moment that mattered most, because as the king's carriage pulled off, Catherine, still standing on the chapel steps, no longer the focus of any lens pointed in her direction, dipped into a second curtsy. People magazine, citing a live stream of the event, reported that she pulled it off effortlessly as the coach took off. Nobody required this. Charles wasn't looking at her. The cameras weren't on her. If she'd simply stood still and let the carriage go, almost no one watching at home would have noticed the difference. She curtsied anyway. That's the part worth sitting with. The first curtsy in front of the king, in front of the crowd, in front of every photographer assembled for exactly this moment, could be read as protocol. The second one, performed for an audience that had already turned its attention elsewhere, can't be read that way at all. It isn't protocol once nobody's enforcing it. It's just who she actually is. There's an ongoing conversation about whether gestures like this still belong in a modern monarchy. Some see the curtsy as an outdated holdover, a piece of theater from a society that no longer exists, kept alive mostly out of habit. Others argue the opposite, that small, repeated acts of institutional respect are exactly what's kept the monarchy intact through wars, scandals, and 7 decades of cultural change that might have dismantled a less disciplined institution entirely. Catherine's actions on June 15th don't settle that debate, but they do offer a preview of which side of it she's likely to land on once the answer actually matters, because the woman bowing to King Charles is, under the current line of succession, also the woman who will one day be bowed to herself by a new generation of royal in-laws, attending a ceremony much like this one, deciding how seriously to take a tradition she clearly never stopped taking seriously. There's something to be said, too, for Sophie's presence beside her. The Duchess of Edinburgh has spent decades as a quiet, scandal-free constant in the royal family, rarely the headline, always showing up. Pairing the two women in that perfect double curtsy wasn't an accident of timing. It put the institution's present steadiness next to its future steadiness, side by side on the same chapel steps. If history offers any pattern here, it's this. The royals who insist on tradition being honored once they're the ones receiving it tend to be the same ones who honored it without complaint while they were still on the outside. Picture both versions of Catherine, side by side. The young girlfriend in 2008, standing somewhere on the edges of a ceremony she had no formal claim to, watching William kneel for his knighthood with no certainty she'd ever be more than his girlfriend. And the 44-year-old Princess of Wales in 2026, standing on the chapel steps in a custom Patrick McDowell coat dress woven from Suffolk silk, dipping into a curtsy nobody was making her perform, for a king who wasn't even looking her way. Same ceremony, same instinct, 18 years, and an entire royal future apart. Nobody choreographed that second curtsy. There was no rehearsal for a moment nobody expected anyone to be watching for. It happened because it's apparently just how she moves through these ceremonies now. The way some people instinctively hold a door open or say thank you to a waiter nobody else at the table notices. The crown doesn't change a person's character. It just gives that character somewhere bigger to operate inside. And on Garter Day 2026, with the cameras pointed at a departing carriage and almost nobody left watching her at all, Catherine answered a question nobody had even asked out loud. What kind of queen does she plan to be once this crown is finally hers? She didn't answer it with a statement, she answered it with a curtsy nobody required, performed for an audience that had already looked away. That's the version of Catherine the monarchy is quietly building its future around. Not the one curtsying for cameras, but the one who keeps doing it when the cameras have moved on. Whether that consistency holds the same way once she's the one wearing the crown is a question only time will answer. But if June 15th, 2026 is any indication, the woman who started as an outsider watching from the sidelines in 2008 has spent every year since proving she already understands exactly what she's inheriting and exactly what it will still ask of her, long after the king who currently wears it is gone. If you want more stories like this one, the moments that reveal who these royals actually are when nobody's required to perform, subscribe to Royal Archives. Because the next chapter of this family story is still being written, and Catherine's part in it is only just beginning.